I'm hopeful, brother, for the future, because I think people are not wanting to be lied to as much anymore. Despite the fact that we elected Donald Trump to be president, I do think that there's a critical mass of people who are sick and tired of being lied to.
The yeah, well, um, I'm curious, like what lies you're like you were just talking about history being suppressed. Is that the kind of thing you're referring to as lies?
I mean, well, I mean, we were both told lies. We were both told lies about race. We were told that the civil rights
Sure.
movement happened and that racism ended as a result of that movement. We were both taught that, and that wasn't true, not even remotely. And so, I what I mean is like the mythology of white supremacy is what I'm referencing. This
Yeah.
idea that um, stories that they tell, like that the slaves needed to be enslaved or enjoyed enslavement, right? Or that um, all the lies about racial history, but also just lies about what it means for us in our lives. Like we were never actually given a chance to think about our own experience with race actually exists as a made up illusory concept that was foisted on us. That whole option to consider that reality has been robbed of us. And from that foundation, there's literally nowhere to go. There's nowhere to get outside of that, um, without going back and dealing with that initial conflict, that initial lie, that foundational lie. Oh, what's up, Ali? Prince Ali in the house. What's up, brother?
Yeah.
um, so yeah, that's what I mean when I say lies. But and then you know they're not just lying about the present and the past. They're lying about the future, because what they've done by not allowing us to even consider our own racialized experience, we can't even imagine a future world where all of these categories are completely defunct, where this whole racial language is completely defunct and no longer utilized in our everyday society, where these um, categories no longer have sway over people's thoughts. And whereby, when I was talking to a guy I was working with on educational technology a little while ago, and he made an appearance on the show. That's how we first met. And we were just talking a couple weeks ago, and he goes, bias always creeps up. He's like, it always creeps up no matter what. And that's not everyone's experience. That is not everyone's experience. Not everyone experiences bias creeping up all the time uncontrollably. And I think that a lot of it's another aspect that people think is inherent. They're like, oh, there's nothing I could do about these biases creeping up. They're gonna creep up. That's not true. It's just
Yeah.
literally not true. And so, but they haven't even been allowed to imagine a world in which they exist that way, in a way that is not bias creeping up all the time and them having to constantly suppress and think about it that way. So I just feel like there's, maybe lie is not the right word, but there's at the very least,
No,
yeah.
I think it is a lie, and I'm glad to get that explanation from you. Like the lie that race is inherent,
Yeah.
and the critical mass of people you're referring to are like you and I, and the people I know. One other person,
There's a lot of
one.
us, brother. There's a lot of us, like,
Yeah. So now we can actually get together and imagine what the future could look like without that.
yes, sir. That's what
That
we got to
um,
do.
that's the kind of conversation I've been trying to create, and people have a lot of reasons not to do that. Like one of them that I hear a lot is like start to get into race is not inherent. Here are the facts of history, and people will say, well, human beings they're always going to find a reason to other each other and hate each other. And maybe that's true.
I don't think that's,
but
I mean, there's no evidence
I don't
of that.
I don't think that's true personally. But
Yeah.
even if it were, that's no reason to not discuss the truth that people aren't inherently a race. But that's how it manifests. It's like it's a reason to stop having this conversation that people give. And it's not a good reason, but it is what I encounter sometimes.
Yeah, I've encountered that exact same thing, Ben, of people saying almost identically what you just said. So yeah, there's definitely like, I don't know. Isn't there, doesn't it seem like sometimes there's all this programming out there that people are just kind of spitting out like computers? Like, I don't know how many conversations you've had about race, but for me, who's had so many through the decades, like, I just see these patterns always consistently emerging, these narratives emerging, and people are just like automatons, just like boom,
Yep.
boom, 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 and
My experience as well. Yeah.
yeah. I want to get to a place where we're having conversations that surprise people. That's why I like when people walk away from these conversations with me. The number one thing people say is, you made me think about this in a way I never have before. And that's what I
Nice.
want. That's what I want, man.
Right. Yeah. You're raising consciousness, and you must be doing it in a way that works. It makes people feel safe enough to take on something else, something new.
Yeah, I think that's the key, right? And going back to kind of your initial point about like, um, you know, we got to get together and we've got to imagine a future world that we want to create that doesn't involve all this crap. You know, I'm excited about that prospect. I'm really excited about that prospect, but I also don't want to get ahead of myself, And I feel like there's that saying that we're only as good as the worst of us, right? Or something like that, like, the weakest link, you're only as strong as your weakest link, right?
Uh-huh.
And I really feel like in this race context, and probably in every context, it's extremely relevant. It's extremely relevant for humanity. I think that we have to realize that we're only going to be treated as well as the weakest among us, as the most powerless among us, and that's why the Palestinian genocide, the genocides in Sudan, and like in other places, the Congo, these things. That's why they matter so much to a lot of people who are socially justice minded. Is because we recognize that dehumanization is our dehumanization, collectively. And we've all got to face it. And that's the same way that I approach race. Race is our collective dehumanization, and instead of turning into an us versus them, right? Into a, you're the racist and I'm the victim of racism. We can talk about how we're both the victim of racism, because that is the truth. That is the actual truth, and it's a truth that we can't imagine unless we get that education you were talking about history, about how race operates. Thanks for watching. For access to the full-length conversation and all of the 2-hour-long unedited conversations that I've had on race, click the support link in the description below. Thanks for your support, and see you next time.